Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir. So, today my report is about the quantitative risk analysis and plan risk response under the plan risk management. Quantitative risk analysis. It is a risk analysis performed with a focus on numerical values of the risks present. The quantitative risk analysis allows you to determine the potential risk of a project. This can help you decide if a project is worth pursuing. It is also useful in the development of project management plans, as understanding the risk present allows you to reduce the likelihood of certain risks and to prepare for others that you cannot fully eliminate. Quantitative analysis produces precise outcomes. It requires methodical calculations, and it takes more time to complete. It offers more accurate projections of possible risk. When performing a risk analysis, the first decision is whether you want to perform a qualitative or quantitative assessment. These are the top reasons you may choose to perform a quantitative risk analysis. Objective assessment. Because of a quantitative assessment involves assigning numerical values to each risk, it returns objective results. Objective estimates help ensure that all parties have the same understanding of the projected risk. Second, detailed information. A quantitative assessment breaks down a project by the expected cost of each potential risk. This allows you to focus reduction efforts on the risk deemed most likely or most costly. Third, client confidence. When presenting a project assessment to a potential client, the specificity of a quantitative assessment may provide more confidence because there is a little room for misinterpretation. By providing your client a specific number regarding potential financial risk, they can more confidently make their decision about the proposal. Lastly, improved decision making. By creating risk assessments with objective measures, you and others involved in the decision making have an accurate assessment of potential risks. This can help you make the best decision for the company. Quantitative risk analysis does not refer to one specific method of determining potential risk. It is a category of analysis styles, so you can choose the method that best suits your needs. Common types of quantitative risk analysis include the following. Number 1. Expected Monetary Value Risk Analysis, or EMV. This is the most simple form of quantitative risk analysis. In an EMV analysis, all you need is an expected cost of a risk you face and the probability of that risk occurring. You often set these values through a combination of analysis data, consulting with experts, and estimating from experience. By multiplying the cost of each risk by its probability and adding up all the resulting numbers, you generate an overall projected risk amount for the project. Second, decision tree risk analysis. A decision tree allows you to assess the risk of one or more choices. Each tree represents a choice as well as any cost associated with it. Assign probabilities and cost at each point. By following a chain and adding all the costs along it, you identify which choice paths offer the lowest risk. A Monte Carlo analysis creates a range of potential outcomes and is best used around a risk related to project duration or yield. In a Monte Carlo analysis, you often assign the highest probability to the expected outcome. As outcomes get further from this expectation, assign lower probabilities. Estimate cost for each outcome and combine with the probabilities for each to find the total expected cost. Sensitivity assessment allows you to examine uncertainty without a risk analysis and determine which elements are most responsible for uncertainty. For example, in a project with two key components, if the more expensive component is stable and the less expensive is highly variable, the latter would be responsible for more uncertainty, even though it is a smaller fraction of the overall cost. Identifying sensitive components may allow you to identify methods of reducing uncertainty and make estimates more exact. Lastly, the three-point risk analysis. It is a method of determining the expected cost of a risk on a project. To calculate a 3-point assessment, determine the most likely cost of a risk, your most optimistic cost of a risk, and most pessimistic cost of a risk. For a basic triangular 3-point risk analysis, add all three numbers, then divide by 3. A more common approach to 3-point analysis is the beta distribution. Multiply the most likely value by 4, then add the optimistic and pessimistic values and divide the total by 6. If you are planning a project and want to calculate your potential risk, quantitative analysis is an excellent option. These are the steps to perform a simple quantitative risk analysis. First, identify areas for uncertainty. When identifying areas of potential risk, examine every step of the project. Using a project outline or management plan that breaks the overall project into smaller sections is an excellent way to search for areas where risk or uncertainty exists. Second, assess the cost of each risk. Once you have identified where risk exists within your project, you can calculate the relative cost of each risk. To do this, determine the expected cost when each potential risk occurs. Third, determine the probability of each risk occurring. The total numbers identified in the prior step are a listing of all potential risks, which means you are unlikely to encounter all of them over the course of one project. In order to determine how much risk your project carries, you then have to determine how likely it is that each risk may occur. Lastly, calculate the expected cost of each potential risk. Determining the expected cost of each risk is as simple as multiplying the estimated cost of each error by its probability. If you wrote your probabilities out as percentages instead of fractions or decimals, divide the resulting number by 100 to find the expected risk cost of each element. To calculate the total estimated cost of risk on the project, add up the risk cost for each individual element. Plan risk response. First, let us define what is a project risk. It is an uncertain event that can potentially impact a project, either positively or negatively. Project managers need to create risk response plans that describe the risk mitigation strategies they will use to minimize the negative effect of risk events. Plan Risk Response is a document that explains the strategies that would be taken to mitigate negative project risks. It's a part of the larger risk management plan that is subsequently part of any project management plan. What many don't think about is that risk can also be good for a project. Negative risk, a blackout causing storm that halts production. Positive risk, the price for the materials you need for your project has dropped considerably. In project management, negative risks are commonly referred to as threats, while positive risks are known as opportunities. There are two types of risk response strategies. First is for the negative risk. Number one, avoid. This risk response strategy is about removing the threat by any means. That can mean changing your project management plan to avoid the risk because it's detrimental to the project. Second, mitigate. Some project risks you just can't avoid. Those you need to mitigate, which is reducing the impact of the negative risk on the project. Third, transfer. As the name implies, here you'll transfer or pass the work on resolving the project risk to a third party, such as buying insurance or getting a warranty and guarantee. Fourth, accept. This risk response strategy consists in identifying a risk and documenting all the risk management information about it, but not taking any action unless the risk occurs. On the other side of the coin, there are those positive risks that you want to exploit. These are the three strategies for these. Number one, exploit. When there's a positive risk or opportunity you want to exploit, you need to add more tasks or change the management plan to take advantage of it. There is a risk inherent in this approach, but often the reward is worth it. Second, enhance. Here you increase the chance of a positive risk occurring in your project. Third, share. Here, you'll share the risk response with other partners across various teams or projects. It might mean sharing a skilled team member across various projects. Sometimes, Risks have both a threat and an opportunity embedded within. In that case, these are a couple of risk response strategies you can apply. Number one, accept. Here you accept the risk and wait until an adequate response can be determined, such as a contingency plan or allocation of time and cost. This decision must be shared with stakeholders. Second, escalate. If the risk cannot be monitored and is beyond the management of the project, it is escalated to a higher level, such as program or portfolio management. The plan will include the identification of risks, tasks associated with responding to them, and the risk owner who take action. The plan is a way to structure your strategies to make sure that no steps are skipped. You have to take into account the probability and level of impact of a risk and prioritize your response to it. Then, determine if it's cost effective, realistic, and whether it will be successful if followed through. Your risk assessment must be agreed upon by all those involved, especially the project stakeholders. The plan will employ one of the risk response strategies listed above. Then, there will be a risk triggers that set off the plan. These responses must be prioritized as well, from low probability and low impact to high probability and high impact. This will help you determine which risk to respond to. In summary, to plan risk response, project managers should consult various project documents, develop a risk response strategy for all risks with a medium high to high probability of occurrence and medium high to high impact. Select the most effective strategy for each risk and evaluate risk response plans to ensure that they align with the significance of the risk, the cost of the response, and the response effort. The risk response plan is a key process in risk management and a part of the risk management plan.